Good evening, and thank you for tuning in tonight. I'm New York City Councilman Chaim, and you're listening to Chaim on the Radio. It's great to be back here in the studio with my co-host on the air from upstate again, Dr. Faye Zakheim. And we are filling in tonight for Zeb Brenner here on 620 AM, the Talk Line Communications Network. Welcome, Faye.
Hi, Councilman. It is so good to hear your voice. I hear your voice, and I feel safe. Nothing else in life is making me feel safe right now. Everything is so unpredictable. Every morning, every afternoon, every night, something else pops up. And I hear your voice, and you are the voice of sanity. And I'm so grateful to you, Councilman. We are all so grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Faye. And on last week's show, we spoke to parents and advocates with special needs students about the importance of reopening schools for these special children. And the response from parents was enormous. Many of our listeners shared their stories with me and have been working hard this week to share this message with the mayor and city leaders. And after the show last week, we also heard from many providers, including independent therapists, paras, and CETs, who also shared their side of this whole special education crisis that's happening here. And many told us stories of invoices remaining unpaid for months and sometimes years. And, I want to tell you that I spoke to an independent contractor who told me that she hasn't received any payment from the city since the beginning of COVID, and she's working with a special needs child. And it's crazy how an independent contractor has to choose between collecting unemployment or working for free. And, this is, her passion is to work with special needs, and the city is just not paying for the services. So this week, I spoke with DOE, Department of Education, and I sent them like 4 or 5 cases that I had of independent contractors and providers who weren't getting paid. And the DOE, Department of Education, responded to me saying, it's not us, it's the controller's office. So I called up the city controller, Scott Stringer. I called him in the morning, and I brought up this issue with him, saying that the Department of Education is telling me that the money is sitting by you, and you need to cut the check. And he told me, he's going to speak with his office and someone will get back to me right away. And within an hour, I received a phone call back from his deputy chief of staff, who told me that when it comes to special needs payments, they are not responsible for it. It comes directly from DOE. So I told the controller's office that everyone is talking about how the controller is not paying the providers and independent contractors. So you have to make it very clear if it's you or if it's DOE. So they told me they're going to circle back to me and about this, and they're right now, as of this morning, they've been speaking back and forth with DOE. But you can see how much confusion there is in the city. Like everyone's pointing their fingers on others of who has to make the payments to these providers and independent contractors. And that's very unfortunate. So tonight we're going to be speaking about, the special children and the providers, independent contractors. And we're also going to be hearing a little bit later in the program from that restaurant, that cafe, that received a bogus summons this week. And we're going to hear from them. So we have a very informative program, and you're going to hear soon about some of the red tape that we had to cut through this week in order to help the small business owners. So, Faggy, let's take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to put our guests on the air. So let's take a commercial break, and we'll be right.
TCN Talk Line Network Radio, America's #1 Jewish program.
Welcome back, and you're listening to Chaim the Radio, 620 on the AM dial, listening to Talk Line Communications Network. I'm here live on the air with my co-host, Dr. Faye Zakheim. Welcome back, Faye.
Yeah, I am so excited about the guests that you have tonight, Chaim, because last week's program really affected my family personally because of my grandson being a special needs child. So we were so grateful. We kept listening to the program over and over. So I'm really looking forward to tonight's program. Thank you so much.
We have about, I think it's the numbers like a little over 300,000 children in New York City who receive special ed, and who have actually who have IEPs. So tonight, we invited a local SEAT, a special education teacher, to join us on the show to speak about the challenges that providers are facing as the Department of Education continues to fail to make payments. And we have Raizy Rosenfeld, who is an independent provider here in Brooklyn, and she has been in the ongoing battle to get paid for work that she has done since April. And Raizy, thank you for joining us here in the studio.
Hi, Chaim. Thank you for having me here tonight.
It's great having you here. And, first, can you tell our listeners briefly what the job of a SEAT is?
Okay. So, first of all, I wanted to thank you again for inviting me here tonight to speak, to share my challenges, and allowing my voice to be heard in this public forum. A SEAT provider is a special education specialist who travels to homes and schools to work with children individually with behavioral, social, emotional, academic, and developmental issues. We help them to integrate as functionally as they could into school and home settings.
And that's you have an extremely important job. Parents rely on you, and it's so difficult, especially during these times, during COVID, when many schools are closed, and these services are so crucial. And I wrote an op-ed this week in the Hamodia that special eds, and we're talking about. I think all the schools should be open. I think it's safer for schools to be open rather than having children at home running around and going to the neighbors and running around in the streets. At least in the school, you're in a controlled environment. But when you talk about parents with special needs, I've been talking to parents, and last week in the radio show I had parents on the air, and they were saying how difficult it is. There was a mother who had an autistic child, and he cannot sit in front of a computer for more than 30 seconds. And it's so, we don't realize, thankfully, if you don't have a special needs child, you don't realize the struggles that parents go through, especially when you have working parents. So until COVID, am I correct that you essentially submitted invoices to the Department of Education and they issued payments relatively on time?
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, up until COVID. You got the payments on time?
Okay, well, yes and no to that statement. Yes, I have been submitting my monthly invoices to the Department of Education. I was submitting them every month when I finished my billing. The issue of the DOE not paying on time or on a consistent basis has been an issue as long as I'm working as a SEAT provider. I only received my first paycheck 6 months after I initially began to provide services for them. After that, my paychecks came in at random times, sometimes monthly, but often not. It was always extremely inconsistent.
So, someone who works as a SEAT, and that is the main income for that household, you absolutely cannot live on not getting paid, right? You cannot live on not getting paid, or getting paid extremely late.
Right.
And I understand that during COVID, did you get paid at all during COVID?
Okay. During COVID, I haven't been paid at all, not since March. My first paycheck just came in now in September.
See, that is, so from March to September, basically, you couldn't, if you don't have a husband in the household who's working, then you obviously cannot live.
No, it was 6 months where I haven't seen a single paycheck. I couldn't afford to pay my bills. There's rent, there's tuition, grocery bills. I wasn't able to pay anything. It was scary.
Wow. And, you had mentioned to me...
I want to ask a question, because I'm really curious. During that time, didn't you think that maybe I should stop working? That's an amazing thing to me. You were actually continuing to work, almost like a volunteer, and putting yourself out there in this difficult time. Did you ever think, I just can't do this anymore? I'm so impressed. I can't get over this. It's amazing.
Thank you. It was difficult. It was a big challenge. I do my work as a special education teacher because it's something that I have a passion for. I have a passion for helping children, especially during difficult times when things were even harder for them and more inconsistent, I couldn't leave them.
Can you imagine a police officer who's not getting paid? I've never heard of that, but would a police officer go back to work if he or she is not getting paid? Would a sanitation worker go back to work? Would a firefighter go back to work? But a SEAT goes back to work, and that is pretty impressive that you are going back to work even though you don't get paid. And and this is the passion that you have for working with special children. And how do you know that this is a common issue among your fellow special educated providers that you work with?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Actually, before I came to the show tonight, I spoke to a few colleagues of mine who work in the same field. Mm-hmm. Without fail, each of them expressed their frustration over working for so many months without pay. Wow, and
I've been getting more and more calls, and I know that providers, and some providers are owed millions of dollars, and mm-hmm. they have to borrow the money, and then they get reimbursed maybe a year later. But you're not a provider; you're an independent contractor. And how does the DOE's lateness impacted your ability to do your job? Have you been forced to seek other work during this time?
Okay, yes, I did. So towards the end of the school year, my financial situation got so bad, I was forced to leave my job as a professional and take on new work at a significantly lower rate. I'm also forced to work longer hours now to make my ends meet. So I'm currently working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day just to get up to date with paying my bills.
Yeah, but if you're not getting paid, you could work late hours, but you have to also find some other employment, some other income. It's like I want the listeners to know how difficult it is when you have a independent contractor, someone who works with special needs, how they live or how they can't live, how they can't afford to pay the rent. The call-in number here in the studio is 718-303-9090, 718-303-9090. I want to hear from some of the parents, if anyone calls in, some of the parents of special needs to see how they cope. Once again, the number here in the studio is 718-303-9090, and the phones are ringing. Let's take this call. Hi, you're on the air. Hi, you're on the air.
Oh?
Hi.
Yes, hi. My name is Hannah.
Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Okay, so I'm following this conversation with a lot of interest because I have a son with services, and we have providers that have not been paid in, a really long time. And, just like Raizy said, we had some providers who were able to just hold off and wait for their payment to come in. Maybe they have a lot of other cases and they only see my son a couple of times a week. But then we needed a para who this would be his full-time job, and eventually it kind of became either he was going to stay and work with my son and we would have to pay out of pocket, or else he was going to have to leave and my son wouldn't be able to be in school. So we didn't really have a choice, and we've just been paying out of pocket. And there's nobody to talk to at the office at all. So it's really a crazy situation. I'm so grateful that you're addressing it.
So are you actually paying out of pocket?
So, we don't really have a choice because my son needs a para to be able to be in school. And he's actually, they keep blaming it on COVID, but he has been mandated this for over a year now. So it was much before COVID that this, lack of efficiency, seems like an understatement, but it's just, that they're just not doing what they need to be doing.
So if you pay out of pocket, does the city reimburse you for that?
So that's what we have an advocate that we're working with, and the mandate is there, so we're hoping that the money will come in, but even just to lay it out, it's almost double of what a tuition is, and this is just for one child, so it's really, really difficult, but I feel like we're kind of being pushed against the wall when you either do that or, this is what our son needs, so it's not even an option. He wouldn't be able to be in school without a para. That's what we were told by the school.
Absolutely. Chana, please stay on the air. We're going to take some other calls, and I'd like to have a little conversation here. between you and Raizy. Let's take another call. So stay on the air. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, great show. So I don't have a special needs child. However, one of my children did need to see it, and I will tell you that the impact that the see it had on my child's life has been so unbelievable. Even now, today, over 10 years later, we see the see it, and there's such a strong connection between the see it and the child and the family coming into the house, sitting on the floor even with the child, and getting to the child's level. And people don't realize a see it is not just another job. It changes the children's lives, and it's work that's so unbelievable. And I think that the people that do it need to have a big round of applause. And I don't want to say anything negative, but shame on the people who are not paying the see-its.
Yeah, and this is one of the things, I was supposed to have a offline hearing with providers and independent contractors and DOE. And, I walked into, I made a surprise visit, and it was the first time it was ever done. I walked into to DOE, into their hearing offices in Manhattan, and I just walked in, and they were shocked, and they started sending security after me, and I was walking around the hearing rooms to see, because I've been getting complaints from parents saying that they're waiting for their IEPs, they're waiting for the hearings, for all the decisions, and everything was like really working extremely, extremely slow, and they weren't getting paid. And it was crazy, because then the mayor's office sent someone to run over all the way from City Hall, and he runs up the stairs all out of breath and asked me if, everything's okay. I said, actually, I'm just checking it out to see how your hearings work here, because I was going to invite all my colleagues to come down, but I wanted to see for myself at first. And then I had a meeting like 2 days later with the chancellor. He called me into his office, and I brought up this issue, and he told me that he's going to work on it, and I told him I want to have an offline hearing, and then COVID hit, so unfortunately we couldn't have it. So people started getting paid slowly, but then when COVID hit, they stopped getting paid. So yesterday 2 days ago, I spoke to the controller of the city of New York, and I spoke to DOE. We're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to make sure as best to my ability that I could get, these people, the see-its and the paras and everyone else reimbursed for the services, because this is really a shame. Stay on the line, and let's take another call. The phones are ringing here off talk. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
So I actually had a similar situation, not with a see-it provider, but with a speech-language pathologist. We fought for about 2 years for my son to finally get these services. Long story short, I had reached out to DOE pleading with them to bring in somebody to hold these evaluations, and they kept pushing it off and pushing it off. Finally, months later, they got back to me. We got somebody in. They recommended speech services for my child who has severe speech impediment, and then it took about 6 months until they finally implemented it and held a meeting to put it on his IEP. And now that provider never got paid for those services that I finally received after I fought so hard. And she refuses to, it's not her fault, but she won't see him this coming year because she still hasn't been paid for his case last year. So what would I tell such a provider? Like, what should she do? She's an independent contractor. She's not working for an agency. Sometimes the agencies have to lay out the money, and they're in debt for millions of dollars because they need to pay their people. What would you recommend that somebody like that do?
Okay, definitely have them send me an email. My email is cdeitch@council.nyc.gov, and we could definitely look into it. I'll send it over to the DOE and to the controller's office, and we'll have them look in the case. So I want to thank you for calling in, and I want to thank all our callers, and I want to thank Hannah, the first caller, and Raizy Rosenfeld, who came here to the studio to speak about her experience as a see-it. So thank you, Raizy, for all the great work that you're doing, and the passion you have for your job, working right now for free. and that's truly, truly amazing. And we'll do everything possible to make sure that you get reimbursed as quick as possible. So,
thank you, Councilman,
yes,
for giving them a voice. Thank you so much.
Well, you're giving them a voice too.
It's all you. It's all you. It is. No, because if you wouldn't have them on, people wouldn't realize how difficult it is. These girls and men are continuing to work because they feel a passion for it, but yet they're living at home with missing things because they're giving their life over to help others. It's like you. It's amazing.
Yeah, we're gonna have some special guests coming up next. We're gonna have the owners and the manager of Mixed Greens Cafe here in Coney Island Avenue, and I'm sure you heard about it in the news on Fox News yesterday. It was all over Twitter. My tweet went viral. So we're going to have the owners here and the manager, and we're also going to be joined by Marc, Cohen, the owner of Eat and Run Cafe. We're going to tell you the full story of what transpired this week with the small businesses where bogus summons was issued. And the reason why we're bringing them on is to, first of all, they want to thank the public. And also, we want to let the businesses know that if you have been targeted with a bogus summons, yes, someone is there for you. You could send me an email, and we will follow up with the city agencies. So let's take a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
TCN, Talk Line Network Radio, America's #1 Jewish program.
Welcome back, and you're listening to Chaim the Radio, 620 on the AM dial. You're listening to Talk Line's Communication Network, and I'm here live on the air with my co-host, Dr. Faizak Chaim. It's been another eventful week in Brooklyn as we continue to be targeted for harassment by city inspectors from every agency you can think of. In particular, Orthodox schools, shuls, and businesses have been visited nearly nonstop by these inspectors, and many have been issued fines for bogus violations. Yeah, you heard that right, bogus violations. One story made national news when the video of a manager of Mixed Greens Cafe went viral on social media. And that manager and owner of the store are both here tonight to share their story, and you're going to hear it firsthand. And to speak about the overwhelming response that they received from across the country. And I think I received an email today from Berlin. Someone from Berlin sent me an email thanking me. So welcome, Manager Mike Green, we have here to my left, and the store owners, Jacob Green and Solomon Zarif. Welcome here live in the studio.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we're also joined by Marc Cohen, the owner of Eat and Run Cafe, who has been instrumental in advocating for the Greens and for all small businesses. Mike, Jacob, please tell our listeners of what happened in your Tuesday store. But you know something, I have to give Marc really I have to commend Marc Cohen, the owner of Eat and Run, because both of your stores are actually a block away from each other, and you're actually competition, right? Yeah, you're competitors. You serve the same types of food, and you're a block away. And I know that I think Jacob, Marc, who came over to you originally? So
I actually did. I came to Marc originally, and Marc helped me out tremendously.
So Mike Green, the manager of the store, so you originally called up Marc Cohen, right. And Marc, so tell us what happened after you received a phone call from Mike.
The first thing I said, I know the right person, the exact person that this is perfect for, and someone that advocates for our community better than anybody I know. And I said, Chaim Deitch is the man that we need to bring in with his entire staff. And really, I said, I pretty much guaranteed him, I said, it'll be okay. And I said, if Chaim has it, it will be done. And that's really what happened. And Chaim, I give you a lot of credit and thank you. On behalf, I'm sure the Greens have, emotionally, I'm amazed on the achdus, on how the community comes together. And with your leadership, it really turned out better than we expected. Not just for Mixed Greens, but for every business in this area. As we all know, businesses are struggling. No matter what business it is, whether it's food, whether it's retail, whether it's school business, or any type of industry in this area, it really is hurting. And this type of business shows how great our community is and how great the leadership of Chaim really, I mean, it's you get that aura in the air, and like, wow, here we are. It's almost like a fresh start, I think, and the beginning, and I think this is really gonna change the tide, hopefully. And thank you again, Chaim.
Well, let's talk about Mike. You're the manager of the store.
Correct.
So you were in the store when this inspector walked in. So tell the listeners, tell us exactly what happened.
So the inspector walks in. Obviously, he was wearing regular clothes. He was undercover. He asked me if he could sit down to eat. I told him we only have takeout. Right away, he wrote me up a ticket and issued me a ticket for obviously no reason. And really, everything was recorded. Thank God. I was able to catch a lot of the time. I had the time to video everything, which was very
and you had the time because unfortunately your business wasn't going that well.
Correct.
And
we were struggling during COVID. I mean, ever since COVID started, we were really struggling, and it was really tough. And of course, when you issue a ticket to somebody who's struggling, it makes it a lot harder for them to survive. So,
and when Marc originally called me, I didn't know there was a video. Marc called me up and I asked him to send me over the violation. And I'm reading the violation, and it says that the door's open, and they saw someone walk into your store like 22 feet into the store. So before I did anything, I went back to the guidelines to check the restaurant guidelines. It doesn't say anything about the door needing to be closed. It basically says no indoor and outdoor seating.
Right.
So the first thing I did after I saw the violation, I didn't even know there's a video out there. I called the mayor on a cell phone, and it went straight to voicemail, just as it did for 2 times the week prior. So I tried calling him 3 times within a week, and it went to voicemail. And as a matter of fact, it was a New York Post article that I called him out because I was actually going to put a missing poster. The mayor finally called me last night after 3 calls. And I told the mayor as soon as he called me, he says, Mr. Mayor, I was going to put a missing poster out for you because I thought you were missing. But that was just for him calling me. He's missing anyway. But anyway, so I called the mayor on a cell phone. It went to voicemail. Then I called the Department of Health and explained to the Department of Health exactly what happened, right? It was black and white. And the response was, okay, we have to speak to our restaurant inspectors, and I'll get back to you. First thing I was thinking is that this is not the first time we had a lockdown. We had businesses closed. So Department of Health, they are part of the agencies that write these guidelines. So they should have had a response that second saying, oh, no, that summons shouldn't have been issued because it doesn't say that in the guidelines. They said, no, we'll call you, we have to get back to you. And that bugged me right away. The phone call came from the Department of Health, came actually next day about 4 p.m. Then my third phone call that evening was to Penny Ringel, who works for the mayor. And he's been really phenomenal, very responsive, 24/7 when there's emergencies. He's available. He's a great guy. So I reached out to him. At that point, I already knew that there's a video out there. And I'm watching the video, and I'm saying, this is crazy. But I'm glad that, Mike, you took the video.
Right.
Because most businesses...
the opportunity to, yes.
And a lot of businesses are just afraid, and they're embarrassed that they got a violation. They just keep quiet, and they suffer in silence. And when I called up Penny Ringel, when I told him the story and I sent him the video, he told me, no, that summons should have not been issued. And that's when I tweeted my tweet out. And I'm just going to read you my tweet briefly, which actually went viral. It says, why would anyone want to open a business in New York City? A cafe in our district today received a summons for having their doors open. They are adhering to the law by banning indoor-outdoor dining, and they were only open for takeout. That was enough for this misinformed inspector. And that tweet went viral, and that made, you got tons. Next day, so I want you to talk about how many calls you received from New Yorkers, from people across the country. So let's talk with Jacob Green, the owner of the cafe.
So that night they went. They saw the posts going crazy. And they said, we got to go prepare. So they went and they shopped and they got everything they needed, or they thought they needed, because we were so overwhelmed with business that we still ran out of food regardless. And they were there in the restaurant at 11 o'clock at night, and the phone was ringing off the hook. So they call me up and they tell me, you won't believe what's happening. We're getting calls from all over. So right away I started up the Twitter account. And from there, it was insane. We got SV News got in touch with us, and they posted it. And I think they have close to a million views already. And Balaz posted after, and I think they have close to 500 or 600 views. And we're getting support literally from the whole country. People are sending us orders on our website and from Arkansas or Mississippi, and they're saying, please donate it to the local police department or fire department, or it's really the whole country banding together to help this small business out, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So tell our listeners what did you do last night at 8 o'clock at night? Where were you?
I was invited to Tucker Carlson, and amazing that all this happened in less than 24 hours. From zero, from my cousin Mike calling me up on the verge of tears. Literally, he couldn't understand what was going on, and this is everything to him. And he was just so shocked at what happened. And then the outpouring of support really turned a curse into a blessing. We couldn't have hoped for a better reaction from everybody. It's just amazing. Now we really just got to get everything open.
And we also have your partner right here. We have Solomon Zarif. So tell us about the emotional part of this whole thing. What the feeling was when so many Americans, so many people across the country, and like I mentioned, I received an email today from someone from Berlin. So it actually went beyond.
So thank you, Chaim, first of all, for everything you've done for us and for the community. We want to thank Marc from Eat and Run, who, like you said, is literally down the block from us, and kind of made all of this happen. But the emotional part was really a complete roller coaster, because we went from kind of a ditch all the way to over the hill with the support from the country and from the world. And I think people have to understand that millions of retweets, hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views, we're not the only ones. Everybody feels the same way. Everybody feels that the small businesses are hurting, and this is what it is today. Here we are.
Yeah, all right. Let's take some calls. 718-303-9090. The call-in number here in the studio is 718-303-9090. Hi, you're live on the air.
Hi, it's Reuvain Borchardt from Hamodia. How are you?
Reuvain, thank you so much. I want to tell you, Reuvain, you have been amazing throughout this ordeal, and I know you published an article last night. So tell us what feeling and what feedback did you get from this whole ordeal?
Well, I got to tell you, first of all, there may be a presidential debate going on now, but there's nowhere I'd rather be than Chaim on the radio. So I actually spoke to Jacob shortly after his Tucker Carlson segment, and I did an article with Jacob. I got an email today from a gentleman named Cliff Leonard, who's a sculptor in Jacksonville. He said that he saw the Tucker Carlson segment, and then he Googled to find the story, and he saw my story on Hamodia.com, and he said he wanted to reach out to Jacob to give him some money also. And I understand that Jacob spoke to him a while before this show this evening, and he gave him some money. There's a feeling that people feel that these inspectors are just out to get them. They're not looking for real violations, but just technical violations. And I'll add also, this is not the first time this has happened. Last week, 2 yeshivas in Queens, which are in the yellow zone, got summonses for being open. The yellow zone is allowed to have schools open, and the principal of one of them said that when he tried explaining to the inspector look, we're in the yellow zone. We even have a letter from the state DOE saying we're allowed to be open. The inspector essentially said, my boss said I should give this, and walked away. Eventually, it was rescinded. Also, we reached out to the DO. To the DOH of the city, and some elected officials like Good got involved. There was also an incident yesterday. Borough Park Lumber got a summons from the state health department, and they're a building supply center. They're allowed to be open. Eventually, it was also rescinded. But it just feeds into this feeling that the community is being targeted unfairly by the inspectors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank you because you question the mayor every week, and this week you asked the mayor a question. I want to get to that in a minute. So, Reuvain, please don't hang up. We have a very special guest who's coming on the air, and like I mentioned before, and you heard from Solomon, from Jacob, and from Mike about the outpouring of support they received from across the country. So I invited one of the people that showed tremendous support to your restaurant, to the restaurant, and I invited her to be here live on the air, but she was watching the debate, so we just got a hold of her. So we're gonna put her in. We have Diedra Burke from Minnesota.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hi. How are you? So tell us what you saw all the way out of Minnesota. You saw it on social media, and tell us what you went through. Like, what was your feeling and the fact that you reached out to the restaurant? So I want to hear from you.
Well, it was actually also really very simple. I saw the initial video of what occurred. I saw it on Twitter one evening a couple nights ago, and I was outraged by it. American businesses are already in the midst of an extremely difficult time across the entire nation. And for some government employee to walk through the door and leave an already struggling business, yet in more debt, was outrageous. I was outraged by it. So I did a little bit more research on Twitter, and I came across a post by Kyle Kushoff, who was equally as apparently outraged as I was. And he had several links on his profile regarding where the restaurant was, the restaurant's name, and whatnot. And I wanted to help. The only thing I could think to do, I'm way over here in Minnesota, so I looked up the website, and of course they don't mail deliver to Minnesota.
and even if they do deliver, I don't think you want the food once it gets there.
Probably not. Not with the way the mail systems are running these days, anyway. But
I guess you're not voting absentee.
No, I am not. No, I am not. I'm taking myself right to my local precinct. But after I saw the website, I saw that they did allow online ordering. And I thought, it isn't much. I can't do much. But what I can do is help them stay in business the same way I'm trying to help my local restaurants in my little small town here. And I placed an order, and in the notes of the order, I asked them to feed 5 different people breakfast the next morning. So I ordered 5 coffees and 5 different kinds of breakfast. And it was off and running after that. My post went crazy, people contacting me like crazy, asking me how I did it. And I just gave them instructions on what I did.
Wow. You just gave me the...
To me, it was also very simple.
So, I have to give you, tremendous amount of credit. If us New Yorkers, we're sitting here on Twitter and we see something like this in Minnesota, how many people would actually say, something, let me call in an order and let me order some food for a homeless person out there, and you picked up that phone and you followed that tweet and you said, wow, I'm going to take some action. Maybe you should come into New York and run for mayor. What do you think?
I've been to New York City a couple of times, and I didn't receive the warmest of receptions there. New York City folks don't understand Minnesota nice very well. I actually have the audacity to stop and talk to the doorman. I do. And I'll have a chat with a cab driver. They thought I was some sort of alien while I was there. It was the oddest thing ever. But it was a wonderful experience, and I would certainly go back in a second. But the mayor? Nah, I don't think so. Your folks wouldn't like me well enough. I put it out there the way it is.
Well, don't come back yet. I'm gonna tell you when it's safe to come back.
There you go.
So, I just want to tell you, this is a nice, small, kosher restaurant on Coney Island Avenue, right in the fringe of my district. Tell us what's your background? What's your background and, the impact you made on the Jewish community here was tremendous. I mean, everyone is people are talking about you, and that's why we wanted to have you on the radio show. We wanted people to know, who this person is. With such a strong heart, with such a good heart.
Well, I have received some really amazing responses to what I did, and I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. My background is long-term care. I own 4 long-term care facilities here in Minnesota, and we're going through our own difficulties with COVID-19.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Fortunately, though, out of all 285 of my residents, all 4 of my facilities, and 185 staff members, we have had 0 COVID-19 exposure.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great.
So it's worked out very, very well for me. But my background is in long-term care. I have no background whatsoever with Jewish community. Don't know anything about it. Honestly, when I saw this online, I didn't see it as a Jewish deli. I didn't see it as a Jewish anything. I saw it as an American business.
And a small business, exactly.
It's just another small business, and they were struggling, and I could hear in the video, and that's really what drove it home for me, the anger and the outrage of the city and government employees. Shame on him. Go find a new and better job, dude.
Yeah.
But the gentleman that was recording the video, you could hear his disheartened voice.
Well, we have him here live in the studio.
Hello.
Oh, it was that voice that moved me to do what I did. I could hear how upset and disappointed he was, and you could hear that this was just another blow. He came right out in the video and said, we're already struggling, and now you want to do this. And that is what prompted me to move on this, was that voice. And I help people for a living. It's what I do. And to see this business slammed with a subpoena and or a fine, or their restaurant is already empty, and this on top of it, shame on them. Shame on the entire city, really. Here in my little town, we have 4 restaurants and we have 3 bars. And in our small town, everybody has really wrapped their arms around every restaurant in town. And we all buy out at least once a week just to keep them open. And I'm thinking, okay, now we're just going to extend that to Brooklyn, New York. Let's go.
So I just want to finally just tell you, because we're running out of time, but I just want to tell you that the impact you made here in the community and the change you made here in New York City by doing what you did and sending a message to the leadership, the decision makers here in New York City, and to all those who are going against the small businesses.
And 1 Mega Millions.
So this is, really, you changed all the way from all the way from Minnesota. You changed, the way things are working right here in New York City, and you're really a role model for all of us. So I just want to give the Mike and Solomon and Jacob, the owners of the restaurant, from Mixed Greens Cafe, to just say thank you real briefly, because we're running out of time.
Actually, it's Mike here, and I actually want to thank you personally. It's been very encouraging and warming all the support that I've been having for the last couple of days. And I didn't think that, my video would be so popular and so viral. And I want to thank everybody, and also Chaim Deutscher, because and Marc, of course. Without you guys, this thing would never happen. And hope we made a change. Hope we made a difference.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Diedra. And when you come into New York, definitely look me up, and we'll have you over. So I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you for calling in tonight.
No problem at all.
Thank you so much. So, I just want to, we have another minute or two left, and I want to tell our listeners, you just heard from Diedra Burke all the way from Minnesota, and she was one of many who gave support to the small businesses here in New York City. You heard what she said. This is an American business, and she wanted to support these businesses. So I'm asking all our listeners that please go out and support these small businesses. And I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask Marc Cohen from Eat and Run Cafe, who was actually, the first call to me, and very concerned. And like I said, they're both competitors, only like a block away. And he didn't care. He doesn't care. He just said, something, I got to take care of a fellow business. So I want to ask our listeners and tell our listeners, if you're going to go out, please patronize them, because these are great people working hard, and the businesses are very, it's very difficult now in New York City to run a business. So, Marc, if you could please give the name and address of your business, and then I'm going to ask Solomon and Jacob to give the name and address of their business again.
It's Eat and Run Cafe, located at 2574 Coney Island. We're privileged to be right across the street from the 61st Precinct and the best police department in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Marc.
Thank you, Marc. And we are Mixed Greens at 2486 Coney Island, right across the street from the 61st Precinct, the best precinct in the world. So yes, that's how close we are.
That's how close we are.
And we love our small business partners here, and thank you for everything.
Yeah. Reuvain, I want to thank you so much for calling in and for everything you do on behalf of New York City as a journalist. So I want to thank you. Hold the mayor's feet to the fire. Continue doing that, and you're doing a great job. So thank you, Reuvain. Thank you all so much. And don't forget...
Thank you, Councilman. I just want to point out that I asked the spokesman from City Hall if there are going to be any repercussions for that inspector, and there was no response. And I spoke with the state official. State official confirmed absolutely the stores can have the doors open. The customers can go inside and pick up the food and bring it home.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I just want to remind our listeners that early voting begins this weekend. And if you want to know your early voting site, you go online, you click Find My Poll Site, mypollsite.vote.nyc. And also, don't forget, November 3rd is Election Day, and that's going to be at your regular poll site. So I think Marc wants to say something real quick.
I just wanted to mention about this specific inspector that came and visited Mixed Greens, visited us the day before. And that's how Mike came to us, because one of the other restaurants on the block said, look, Marc actually practically threw him out because what he told me was he did the same thing, wanted to issue us a summons, and I showed him the regulations. I made him fully aware, and I said, how about you walk with me to Walgreens? And if there's no customers in Walgreens allowed to go in, give me a summons. And I showed him black and white the rules that we can have people come in. And when I threatened to call City Hall, I said I was going to call Maria Marks and a few other people, and I said, I need your badge number. He said, okay, you're good, and walked away.
Yeah.
That's what happened. So he maliciously knew that what he was doing was wrong. So I think there should be repercussions for an inspector like that. He works for Consumer Affairs. He didn't work for the Health Department. He worked for Consumer Affairs, and someone like that knowingly issues fraudulent summonses is someone that shouldn't be an employee of the city. That's all I have to say, but I want to say thank you again, Chaim, because this...
Thank you. All right, until next week, I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, and thank you all. Special thanks to all our guests.